When a terrified waitress spills wine on the city's most dangerous crime boss, she expects violence. Instead, she gets something far more dangerous, his complete attention. Lena Voss has spent her entire life trying to be invisible, her crippling shyness a shield against a world that never noticed her anyway. But one clumsy mistake in an upscale restaurant changes everything when Adrian DeLuca doesn't just see her, he claims her. Now this painfully shy girl must navigate a world of power, danger, and a man whose gentle touch hides an empire built on fear. Stay until the end to see how an invisible girl becomes irreplaceable. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far Lena's story travels. The crystal chandelier above table 7 cast dancing shadows across white linen, and Lena Voss wished she could disappear into one of them. Her hands trembled as she balanced the tray. 3 glasses of Bordeaux, each costing more than her weekly rent. The private dining room at Aurelio's hummed with quiet power, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Lena had been working here for 6 months, and she'd perfected the art of being invisible. Head down, voice soft. Never, ever make eye contact. "You got this, Lena," she whispered to herself, the words barely audible. Her therapist said positive affirmations helped with anxiety. They didn't. The kitchen doors swung open behind her, and she flinched. Marco, the head waiter, shot her an impatient look. "Table 7's waiting. Move." Lena's pulse quickened. Table 7. The private room. The one Chef Bernard had warned the entire staff about this morning, his usually jovial face drawn tight with something that looked like fear. "Whatever you do, don't screw this up," he'd said, his accent thicker than usual. "These aren't regular guests." She'd wanted to ask what he meant, but the words had stuck in her throat like they always did. Instead, she'd nodded and retreated to her station, making herself small. Now, as she approached the heavy oak door, her heart hammered against her ribs. Through the frosted glass, she could make out shapes, 3 men seated at the round table, their conversation a low rumble. She raised her hand to knock, then froze. What if they're mean? What if I stutter? What if they— "Lena!" Marco hissed from across the corridor. "Now!" She knocked. Barely. Her knuckles made the softest sound against the wood. "Come in." The voice that answered was deep, precise, and somehow managed to sound both bored and commanding at once. Lena pushed the door open, keeping her eyes fixed on the geometric pattern of the carpet. Cream and gold. Safe. Neutral. Not threatening. "Good evening," she managed, her voice coming out smaller than she'd intended. "Your wine, gentlemen." She moved toward the table, every step carefully measured. Years of being clumsy had taught her to be hyper-aware of her body, to calculate each movement like a chess player anticipating disaster. Left foot, right foot, don't trip, don't drop anything, don't— One of the men shifted in his seat, and Lena's gaze flickered up on instinct. That's when she saw him. He sat directly across from the door, his posture relaxed but somehow predatory, like a panther lounging in the sun. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, sharp jawline, high cheekbones, and eyes so intensely gray they seemed to cut through the dim lighting. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her car, and his hands, resting on the table with casual grace, looked like they could break bones or sign million-dollar deals with equal ease. Those gray eyes locked onto hers. Lena's breath caught. Nobody ever really looked at her. People's gazes usually slid past her like she was part of the furniture. But this man, whoever he was, stared at her with such focused intensity that she felt exposed, like he could see every insecurity, every fear, every moment she'd ever wished herself invisible. She tore her eyes away, her cheeks burning. The tray shook in her hands. "Don't look at him. Serve the wine. Get out." "I'll just—" Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat, hating how small she sounded. "I'll just pour for you if that's all right." "It's fine." That voice again. The man with the gray eyes. His tone was even, almost gentle, but it carried an undercurrent of absolute authority. Lena approached the first guest, a heavy-set man with kind eyes and silver hair. She managed to pour his wine without incident, though the bottle clinked against the rim of the glass. He smiled at her. "Thank you, dear." She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and moved to the second man. Younger, sharp suit, cold expression. He didn't acknowledge her existence, which was somehow comforting. Then came the third glass. His glass. Lena stepped closer, acutely aware of his presence. He smelled like expensive cologne, cedar, and something darker, more complex. She lifted the bottle, willing her hands to stop shaking. "You're new here," he said quietly. The observation was so unexpected that Lena's hands jerked. The wine splashed, not into the glass, but across the pristine white tablecloth, spreading like blood. Oh no, I'm so—" Panic seized her chest. She grabbed for the napkins, knocking the bottle. It tipped, and suddenly everything happened in slow motion. The Bordeaux arced through the air in a perfect crimson stream, heading straight for the man's lap. Lena lunged forward without thinking, her body moving on pure instinct to stop the disaster. Her hands caught the bottle, but her foot caught the table leg. She went down. Strong arms caught her before she hit the floor. One moment she was falling, certain she was about to faceplant into a very expensive carpet and lose her job and probably die of mortification. The next, she was suspended in midair, held against a chest that felt like granite wrapped in silk. "Easy," that voice again. But closer now. Much closer. Warm breath stirred the hair near her ear. "I've got you." Lena couldn't breathe. Her face was pressed against his jacket, some kind of fabric so soft it had to be designer, and his arms encircled her with a strength that was both terrifying and oddly reassuring. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and slow, while hers raced like a trapped bird. "I'm sorry," she gasped against his chest. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to—" "Look at me." It wasn't a request. Slowly, trembling, Lena tilted her head back. Those gray eyes were even more intense up close, framed by dark lashes that any woman would envy. There was something in his gaze she couldn't name, surprise, maybe, or curiosity. Whatever it was, it made her feel simultaneously more visible than she'd ever been and more vulnerable. "Are you hurt?" he asked. The question was so gentle, so unexpected that Lena forgot to be terrified for a moment. No, I'm fine. I'm so sorry about your suit. I'll pay for cleaning. My suit is fine." He was still holding her, she realized, still watching her with that unnerving focus. "You're shaking." Of course she was shaking. She'd just assaulted a customer with wine and fallen into his arms like some kind of disaster-prone romance novel heroine. She'd probably be fired before the night was over. Maybe arrested. Did people press charges for wine assault? "I have anxiety," she blurted out, then immediately wanted to take it back. Why had she said that? You didn't tell strangers about your mental health issues. You definitely didn't tell rich, intimidating strangers who looked like they could buy and sell your entire existence. But something shifted in his expression. The intensity didn't fade, but it softened, like he'd just learned something important. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lena." It came out as barely more than a whisper. "Lena Voss." Lena. The way he said it, slow and deliberate, made her name sound like something precious. "I'm Adrian." The older man cleared his throat. "Adrian, perhaps we should—" "Give us a moment, Thomas." Adrian's tone left no room for argument. His eyes never left Lena's face. "Please." Thomas sighed but stood, gesturing for the other man to follow. They left without another word, closing the door behind them. Lena's panic spiked. "I should go. I should really— Can you stand?" Yes, I think so." Adrian helped her upright with the same careful strength he'd used to catch her. Once she was steady, he released her, but he didn't step back. They stood close enough that Lena could see tiny flecks of blue in his gray eyes. "I'm going to lose my job," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "No, you're not." "I spilled wine on you, on your table. Lena." He said her name like a period at the end of a sentence. "Look at me." She was looking at him. She couldn't seem to stop, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. "You're not going to lose your job," he continued, his voice calm and certain. "And you're going to take a breath. Can you do that for me?" It was such a strange request, phrased like a question but delivered like a gentle command. Lena found herself obeying before she'd consciously decided to. She drew in a shaky breath. "Good." Again. Another breath. Her racing heart began to slow. "Better," Adrian said. There was approval in his tone, and something about it made warmth bloom in Lena's chest, chasing away some of the panic. "I don't understand," she managed. "Why are you being nice to me?" His mouth quirked. Not quite a smile, but close. "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because I just ruined your evening." "You interrupted a very boring business meeting and gave me an excuse to clear the room. If anything, I should be thanking you." Lena blinked. Was he joking? She couldn't tell. His expression was difficult to read, all sharp edges and controlled intensity. "I still need to clean up the mess," she said, glancing at the wine-stained tablecloth with renewed horror. "Leave it." "But, Lena." There it was again, her name spoken with that careful precision. "How long have you worked here?" The change in subject threw her. 6 months. "And do you like it?" It's fine. It's a good job." "That's not what I asked." She fiddled with her hands, a nervous habit she'd never been able to break. "The people are nice. Chef Bernard taught me how to tell expensive wine from cheap wine. Marco's strict, but he's fair. And I like that I can work evening shifts because I do online classes during the day." "What are you studying?" "Library science." She said it quietly, expecting the usual reaction, a barely concealed yawn or a polite nod that said how boring. But Adrian's eyes brightened with genuine interest. "You want to be a librarian?" "I like books. They're safe." Lena immediately regretted the words. They made her sound pathetic. "Safe how?" No one had ever asked her to elaborate before. She found herself answering honestly, her voice soft but steady. "Books don't judge you. They don't expect you to be someone you're not. And libraries are quiet, predictable. You know exactly what you're supposed to do. Organize, help people find what they need, create order. There's no surprises." "You don't like surprises." It wasn't a question. Lena shook her head anyway. "What happened tonight, me catching you, was that a bad surprise?" The question was unexpectedly perceptive. Lena considered it, tilting her head slightly. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "Usually when I mess up, people get angry. You didn't get angry." "No," Adrian agreed. "I didn't." "Why not?" He studied her for a long moment, and Lena had the unsettling feeling he was seeing far more than she wanted to reveal. "Because anger would have frightened you," he said finally. "And you're already frightened enough." The observation was so accurate it stole her breath. She looked away, focusing on the wine-stained tablecloth. "I should really go," she whispered. "Your friends are waiting." "They're business associates, not friends. And they can wait. I don't want to keep you." "Lena." He waited until she met his eyes again. "Do you know who I am?" The question sent a chill down her spine. There was something in the way he asked it, casual on the surface but weighted underneath. "No," she admitted. "Should I?" Something flickered in his expression. Surprise? Relief? "Most people in this city know my name. I don't pay attention to those things. Celebrity stuff, I mean. Or business news. I mostly just read fiction and try to stay off social media because it makes my anxiety worse." Adrian laughed. Actually laughed. It was a brief, rough sound, like he was out of practice, but it transformed his face. For a moment, he looked younger, less dangerous. "You're unlike anyone I've ever met," he said, and it sounded like a compliment. Lena didn't know what to say to that. She twisted her hands together, her default response when conversation became too intense. "I really should clean up," she tried again. "If you insist." Adrian stepped back, finally giving her space. "But I want you to know something first. Okay? You apologize too much. You haven't done anything wrong. I spilled wine. An accident, not a crime." His gray eyes held hers with that unsettling intensity. "You don't need to make yourself smaller, Lena. Not around me." The words hit her like a physical thing, landing somewhere deep in her chest where they had no business being. How had he seen that? How had this stranger identified her most fundamental survival strategy in the span of a 5-minute conversation? Before she could formulate a response, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. The motion was smooth, practiced. He held it out to her. "Take this." Lena stared at the card like it might bite her. "Why?" "Because I'd like to see you again." Her heart stuttered. What?" "Have dinner with me. Tomorrow night." I work tomorrow night. Call in sick. I can't do that. I've never called in sick. Then I'll come here. What time is your shift? 5 to midnight, but you can't, that's not. Lena's thoughts tangled themselves into knots. Was this actually happening? Men didn't ask her out. Men barely noticed her. And this wasn't just any man. This was someone who commanded rooms with his presence, who probably had models and actresses falling at his feet. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would you want to have dinner with me? Adrian tilted his head, considering the question with the seriousness it probably didn't deserve. You interest me, he said simply. That doesn't happen often. But you don't know me, which is why I'd like to have dinner, to get to know you. It was logical, reasonable, and absolutely terrifying. I'm not very interesting, Lena heard herself say. I'm actually quite boring. I spend most of my free time reading or organizing my bookshelves by color, and I hate loud restaurants, and I can't do small talk, Lena, Adrian's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. You're doing that thing again. What thing? Making yourself smaller, listing reasons I shouldn't want to know you. He took a step closer, not threatening, not crowding, just closer. What if I told you that organizing books by color sounds calming, that I also hate loud restaurants, that small talk is a waste of time? I'd say you were being nice. I'm not nice, Adrian said, and there was truth in those 3 words. Something dark and honest. I'm many things, Lena Voss, but nice isn't one of them. When I say you interest me, I mean it. Lena wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. Some long-buried piece of her, the part that used to dream before life taught her to stop, wanted desperately to believe that this impossible man found her worth knowing. Take the card, Adrian said softly. You don't have to call, but I hope you will. Her hand moved before her brain could stop it. The cardstock was heavy, expensive. Embossed lettering read, Adrian DeLuca, DeLuca Enterprises. There was a phone number, nothing else. DeLuca, she repeated, the name familiar, but she couldn't place why. You really don't know, do you? Adrian's expression was unreadable. Know what? He studied her for another long moment, then shook his head slightly. Nothing, for now. The door opened and Thomas poked his head in. Adrian, we're running out of time. I know. Adrian's eyes never left Lena's. I'll be right there. Thomas disappeared again. I should let you get it back to your meeting, Lena said, clutching the card like a lifeline. Unfortunately, yes. Adrian moved toward the door, then paused. Lena? Yes? That thing you said about books being safe because they're predictable? His voice dropped lower. Life isn't a book. The best parts are the ones you don't see coming. He left before she could respond, his footsteps silent on the carpet despite his size. Lena stood alone in the private dining room, surrounded by spilled wine and the lingering scent of cedar cologne, holding a business card that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. What the hell had just happened? The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Chef Bernard took one look at the wine-stained tablecloth and the untouched glasses and opened his mouth to deliver what Lena was sure would be a legendary lecture. But then Marco appeared, whispered something in his ear, and Bernard's face went pale. Clean it up and forget about it, he muttered to Lena, then disappeared into the kitchen. Marco helped her carry out the mess, his usual efficient movements sharp with tension. Marco? Lena ventured as they loaded the tablecloth into the laundry bin. What did you tell Chef? That you had an accident at DeLuca's table and he didn't complain. Marco's voice was tight. Which is either the luckiest break of your life or... He cut himself off, shaking his head. Or what? Nothing. Just be careful, Lena. Before she could ask what he meant, Marco was gone, leaving her with more questions than answers and a business card burning a hole in her apron pocket. By the time midnight rolled around, Lena's feet ached and her head throbbed with the beginning of a tension headache. She changed out of her work clothes in the employee bathroom, pulling on jeans and her favorite oversized sweater, gray, soft, anonymous. The business card fell out of her apron when she folded it, Adrian DeLuca. She pulled out her phone and typed the name into the search bar before she could talk herself out of it. The results loaded, and loaded, and loaded. Lena's hands went numb. Adrian DeLuca wasn't just wealthy, he wasn't just powerful. He was the Adrian DeLuca, the man who owned half of the city's real estate, the man whose name appeared in business magazines and society pages, the man whose family had been rumored, always rumored, never proven, to have ties to organized crime dating back 3 generations. There were photos. Adrian in a tuxedo at charity galas, surrounded by beautiful people. Adrian shaking hands with the mayor. Adrian leaving courtrooms with lawyers in expensive suits. Adrian's father, Alessandro DeLuca, who died 5 years ago under circumstances that sparked 6 months of speculation and 3 separate investigations that went nowhere. The man who'd caught her tonight, who'd asked her to dinner like it was the most natural thing in the world, wasn't just out of her league. He was from an entirely different universe. Lena's thumb hovered over the delete button for his contact. One press, and she could pretend tonight never happened. Go back to her safe, invisible life. No complications, no danger, no one who looked at her like she mattered. She closed the browser and pocketed her phone without deleting anything. The walk to the bus stop took 10 minutes. Lena kept her head down, her keys threaded through her fingers the way her mom had taught her. The city at night was beautiful from a distance, all glowing windows and neon signs, but up close, it was darker, harder. She was waiting at the shelter, earbuds in but no music playing, another safety trick, appear occupied but stay alert. When a black car slid to a stop at the curb, the back window lowered. Adrian looked out at her, his expression unreadable. "Get in." Lena's heart jumped into her throat. "What?" "It's late. I'll drive you home." "I take the bus." "Not tonight." It wasn't a suggestion. Every self-preservation instinct Lena possessed screamed at her to refuse. You didn't get into cars with strange men. You definitely didn't get into cars with men who had the word mafia attached to their family name in every third Google result. But Adrian wasn't a stranger anymore, was he? And something about the way he looked at her, patient, expectant, but not demanding, made her feel like this was a choice, not a trap. "I live in Riverside," she said instead of yes or no. "It's not a nice neighborhood." "I know where you live." That should have been terrifying. Somehow it wasn't. "How?" "Your employee file. I own 40% of Aurelio's." "Oh, right. Of course he did." The driver, a large man in a dark suit who definitely looked like he could break someone in half, got out and opened the rear passenger door. He nodded at Lena politely, like she was someone important instead of a waitress having a very surreal night. "Lena," Adrian's voice drew her attention back to him. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to make sure you get home safely." Well, it was the just that did it. Like her safety was simple, straightforward, worth his time. Lena got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and that cedar cologne. Adrian sat on one side, Lena on the other, with enough space between them for another person. The driver closed her door with a soft click and returned to his seat. "Where to?" he asked. Lena gave her address, her voice barely audible even in the quiet car. As they pulled away from the curb, she pressed herself against the door, trying to take up as little space as possible. The tinted windows turned the city into a blur of lights. Inside the car felt like another world entirely. "You looked me up." Adrian's voice was quiet, observational. Lena's cheeks burned. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry. It's smart. I'd be worried if you hadn't." She risked a glance at him. He was watching her with that same focused intensity, but his posture was relaxed, one arm draped across the back of the seat. "Are you scared now?" he asked. "Now that you know who I am?" Lena considered the question honestly. "I should be, shouldn't I?" "Most people are." "Are you trying to scare me?" "No." "Then I'm not scared." It was almost true. The fear was there, but it was mixed with so many other things, confusion, curiosity, and something that felt dangerously like hope. Adrian's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "You're a terrible liar." "I know." Lena twisted her hands in her lap. "My therapist says I should work on being more assertive, but I think she means assertive in general, not specifically with men who run criminal empires." The words were out before she could stop them. Lena's eyes went wide with horror. "I didn't mean... I'm sorry, that was... accurate?" Adrian finished. His tone was mild, almost amused. The empire part anyway, though I prefer business interest to criminal, less legally problematic. He was joking. Maybe. Probably. Lena couldn't tell. I don't know how to do this, she admitted quietly. Do what? This. Talk to you. I don't understand why you're interested in me, and I definitely don't understand what I'm doing in your car at midnight. And I keep saying the wrong things because I'm nervous, and when I'm nervous, I either don't talk at all or I can't stop talking, and… Lena! Adrian leaned forward slightly, not crowding her space, but closing the distance. Breathe. She did. One shaky breath, then another. Better? She nodded. Now listen to me. You don't have to perform. You don't have to be anything other than what you are. Which is what exactly? I'm still figuring that out. His gray eyes held hers. But I'm interested in learning. The car slowed to a stop outside her building, a 5-story walk-up with peeling paint and a door that stuck. Lena lived on the 3rd floor in a studio that cost too much for what it was, but it was hers. The driver got out to open her door, but Adrian stopped him with a raised hand. He slid across the seat closer to Lena, moving with that predatory grace that should have been frightening. Thank you for the ride, Lena said, reaching for the door handle. Wait. Adrian's hand covered hers on the handle. Large, warm, careful. I meant what I said earlier, about dinner. I know. Will you call me? It was such a simple question, yes or no, but the weight behind it felt enormous. I don't know, Lena whispered honestly. Fair enough. Adrian didn't move his hand. Can I ask you something? Okay. When was the last time someone did something nice for you, just because? The question caught her off guard. Lena thought about it, really thought, and came up empty. I don't remember, she admitted. Something shifted in Adrian's expression, something dark and determined. Then let me start a new pattern, he said softly. Let me take you to dinner, no expectations, no pressure, just a quiet restaurant where we can talk. Why? Because I want to know what makes you smile, what books you organize by color, what you dream about when you let yourself dream. Lena's throat tightened. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. Adrian lifted his hand from hers, but slowly, like he regretted the loss of contact. Good night, Lena Voss. Good night. She got out of the car on shaking legs, the driver nodding to her as she passed. The car didn't leave until she was inside the building, through the sticky door, and climbing the stairs. When she reached her apartment, Lena pressed her back against the closed door and slid down to the floor, her heart racing. Adrian DeLuca had asked her to dinner. Adrian DeLuca, who could probably have anyone he wanted. Adrian DeLuca, who was dangerous and powerful and looked at her like she was something precious. Lena pulled out her phone and stared at his contact information. One call. That's all it would take. Her thumb hovered over the number. Tomorrow, she decided. She'd decide tomorrow. Tonight, she'd just let herself believe, for a little while, that maybe she wasn't invisible after all. She didn't call. For 3 days, Lena carried Adrian's business card in her pocket like a talisman she was afraid to use. She'd take it out during her morning coffee, run her thumb over the embossed lettering, then tuck it away again. The logic was simple. Men like Adrian DeLuca didn't actually want girls like her. He'd been kind in the moment, maybe even charmed by her awkwardness, but that would fade. It always did. Except on the 4th day, he showed up at Aurelio's. Lena was refilling the bread baskets when Marco appeared at her elbow, his face tight with tension. Table 12, he said quietly. And Lena? Don't mess this up. Her stomach dropped. Who is it? But Marco was already gone, and she knew. Somehow, she knew. Adrian sat alone at a corner table, his dark suit pristine, his posture relaxed but alert. He was reading something on his phone, his expression unreadable. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, catching the sharp planes of his face. Lena's hands trembled as she approached, her notepad clutched like a shield. Good evening, she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Can I start you with something to drink? Adrian looked up, and those gray eyes locked onto hers with the same intensity she remembered. Lena. Hi. It came out small, uncertain. You didn't call. Heat flooded her cheeks. I was going to. It's fine. He set his phone down, giving her his full attention. I'm here now. Sit. I can't. I'm working. Then I'll wait until your shift ends. He said it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. Lena glanced around the restaurant. It was the dead zone between lunch and dinner, only 2 other tables occupied. Chef Bernard was in the kitchen. Marco was probably watching from somewhere, but he wouldn't interfere. Not with Adrian DeLuca. Just for a minute, she heard herself say. She slid into the chair across from him, her heart hammering. This close, she could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the way his hands rested on the table with casual confidence. He wore a watch that probably cost more than her yearly tuition. "Why didn't you call?" Adrian asked, his tone curious rather than accusatory. Lena twisted the corner of her notepad. "Honestly? Always. Because I looked you up, really looked you up. And I saw the kind of women you're photographed with at those charity events. Models, actresses, people who know how to exist in your world." She forced herself to meet his eyes. "I'm not those people. I eat cereal for dinner, and I haven't been to a party in 2 years because crowds make me panic. You'd be bored with me in 5 minutes." Adrian leaned back, studying her. "Are you finished?" "What?" "Listing reasons I should lose interest. Are you done?" Lena's breath caught. "I'm being realistic." "You're being afraid." He said it gently but firmly. "There's a difference. Maybe fear is realistic when someone like you pays attention to someone like me." "Someone like me," Adrian repeated, his mouth quirking. "You mean wealthy, connected, dangerous?" The last word hung between them like a challenge. "All of that," Lena admitted. "And someone like you means what? Quiet? Anxious? Working your way through college while serving entitled assholes their overpriced wine?" He tilted his head. "Tell me, Lena, which one of us sounds more dangerous? The man who's honest about who he is, or the woman who keeps pretending she's less than she is?" The observation stole her breath. No one had ever called her on that particular defense mechanism before. "I'm not pretending," she whispered. "Yes, you are. Every time you apologize for existing. Every time you make yourself smaller so others feel bigger." Adrian's voice dropped lower, more intimate. "I noticed something about you that night. Want to know what it was?" Lena nodded, not trusting her voice. "You didn't shrink when you talked about books. Your whole demeanor changed, your voice got stronger, your hand stopped shaking. For just a moment, you forgot to be afraid." His gray eyes held hers. "That's the woman I want to have dinner with, the one who forgets to apologize. That woman doesn't exist very often. Then I'll wait for her to show up." He said it like a promise. Lena's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. That was the terrifying part, how much she wanted this to be real. "I don't understand what you want from me," she said quietly. "Right now? Just dinner, a conversation. Time with someone who doesn't want something from me." "Everyone wants something from you." "Exactly." Adrian's expression darkened slightly. "Money, connections, access. I can't remember the last time someone looked at me without calculating what I could do for them. But you don't know me. I could want those things too." "Do you?" Lena considered the question honestly. "No, I just want to finish my degree and maybe find a job at a library where people leave me alone with the books." "See, that's what I want." "What, someone with pathetically small ambitions?" "Someone real." He leaned forward, and Lena caught that cedar scent again. "Have dinner with me tonight, after your shift. I know a place, quiet, private, no crowds. We'll talk about books. Nothing else if you don't want to." "Adrian." "One dinner, Lena. If you hate it, I'll never bother you again. But if you don't hate it..." He let the sentence trail off, the implication clear. Marco appeared at her elbow before she could answer. "Lena, we need you in the kitchen." It was a lie. They both knew it, but it gave her an escape route. "I have to go," she said, standing quickly. Too quickly. Her chair scraped against the floor. 8 o'clock, Adrian said. "I'll pick you up here." I didn't say yes. You didn't say no either. Lena fled to the kitchen, her pulse racing. Chef Bernard looked up from his prep station, took one look at her face, and shook his head. "Whatever that man wants, Petit Oiseau, be careful. Men like him don't play small games. He just wants dinner." "No, he wants you. The dinner is just the beginning." Bernard's expression was grave. "I've lived in this city a long time. I know the DeLuca family. They take what they want, and they don't let go. That sounds like a warning. It is. Bernard wiped his hands on his apron. But also advice. If you're going to dance with a wolf, Lena, don't pretend he's a dog. Know what he is. Respect the teeth. The rest of her shift crawled by. Lena kept glancing at table 12, but Adrian had left shortly after their conversation, leaving enough cash to cover a meal he hadn't ordered, plus a tip that made her eyes water. At 7:45, she changed in the bathroom, staring at her reflection with something close to despair. Jeans and a sweater. That's all she had. No little black dress, no heels, no jewelry, beyond the cheap silver studs her mom had given her for her 18th birthday. She looked exactly like what she was, a broke college student pretending to be brave. You can still back out, she told her reflection. Just leave through the back. He'll get the message. But at 8 o'clock, when the black car pulled up outside Aurelio's, Lena walked out the front door. The same driver from before, she'd learned his name was Marcus, nodded to her politely and opened the door. Adrian sat in the back, looking unfairly good in casual clothes. Dark jeans, black button-down, no tie. It should have made him seem more approachable, but somehow it just highlighted the coiled strength in his frame. "You came," he said as she slid in beside him. "I'm either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which. Can it be both?" Despite her nerves, Lena smiled. I guess it could. The restaurant was in a part of the city she'd never seen, upscale but not ostentatious, tucked away on a quiet street. The interior was all warm wood and soft lighting, with tables spaced far enough apart for privacy. A hostess greeted Adrian by name and led them to a corner booth. "No one will bother us here," Adrian said as they sat. "The owner is discreet. Does that mean he's afraid of you or loyal to you?" "Both, probably." At least he was honest. Lena picked up the menu, trying not to flinch at the prices. Everything was market price, which meant if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. "Order whatever you want," Adrian said, watching her with those unsettling gray eyes. "And before you argue, this is my invitation. Let me do this. I'm not used to people doing things for me." "I know. That's part of why I want to." A waiter appeared, older, professional, utterly unobtrusive. He took their order. Lena chose the simplest pasta dish she could find. Adrian ordered something in Italian that she didn't catch, and disappeared. Then they were alone, and Lena's anxiety spiked. "So," she said, because silence felt worse. "Books. You said we'd talk about books. Tell me about your favorites." It was an easy question, a safe one, and Lena found herself relaxing slightly as she answered. She told him about her love of fantasy novels, stories where ordinary people discovered they were extraordinary. About her collection of vintage hardcovers from estate sales. About the specific smell of old bookstores, dust and paper and possibility. Adrian listened, really listened. He didn't check his phone or let his attention wander. He asked questions that proved he was actually paying attention, not just waiting for his turn to talk. "What about you?" Lena asked finally, emboldened by wine and the way he was looking at her. "Do you read?" "When I have time. Mostly history, biographies." "Of who?" "Men who built empires." A slight smile. "I like understanding how power works, how it's taken, and how it's kept." "That's kind of dark." "I'm kind of dark, Lena." It should have scared her. Instead, it felt like honesty. Their food arrived, and Lena was grateful for something to do with her hands. The pasta was incredible, silky and rich, with flavors she couldn't begin to name. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, aware of Adrian watching her. "What?" she asked, self-conscious. "You enjoy things fully. No pretense." He took a sip of wine. "Most people in my world perform. They eat expensive food because it's expensive, not because it tastes good. You actually care about the taste. Is that weird?" "It's refreshing." Lena set down her fork, gathering courage. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why me?" "Really?" "Because I've been trying to figure it out, and I keep coming up empty. I'm not exciting. I'm not mysterious. I'm anxious and awkward, and I'll probably say the wrong thing 6 more times before dessert." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "You want the truth?" he asked finally. "Always. I'm tired." He said it simply, But there was weight behind the words. Tired of people who want to use me. Tired of conversations that are really negotiations. Tired of women who see a bank account instead of a person. He met her eyes. You fell into my arms because you were trying to catch a wine bottle, not because you engineered it, not because you saw an opportunity. You were just real. Clumsy and real, and so determined to apologize that you forgot to be calculating. So you're interested in me because I'm a disaster? I'm interested in you because you're honest. Even your anxiety is honest. You don't weaponize it, you just live with it. His voice softened. And because when I caught you, you didn't try to turn it into something it wasn't. You just let yourself be held. Lena's chest tightened. I didn't know what else to do. Most people would have found a way to leverage it. You just blushed and apologized. Adrian leaned back, his gaze never leaving hers. I've spent my entire life around people who take. You're the first person in a long time who seems content just to be. That's a lot of pressure to put on one very boring dinner date. This isn't boring. I haven't said anything interesting. You told me you organize books by color. That's the most interesting thing I've heard all week. Lena laughed. She couldn't help it. The sound surprised her, bubbling up from somewhere genuine. Adrian's expression shifted, something warm replacing the usual intensity. There it is, he murmured. What? The woman who forgets to apologize. They talked through dessert, some chocolate thing that Lena was pretty sure violated several laws of physics with its richness. She told him about her online classes, her dream of running a small-town library someday. He told her about growing up in a family where business and loyalty were the same thing, where power was inherited like eye color. Do you like it? Lena asked. The business, the empire. Adrian considered the question carefully. I'm good at it. That's not the same as liking it. What would you do if you could do anything? No one's ever asked me that. Really? Really? He traced the rim of his wine glass. I think I'd restore old buildings, historic properties that developers want to tear down, save pieces of the past. That's beautiful. It's impractical. Why can't you do both? Because the empire, as you call it, requires focus, dedication. There's no room for hobbies when you're responsible for... He trailed off, something dark crossing his face. For what? Everything. The word came out heavy. Final. Lena wanted to ask more, but the waiter appeared with the check. Adrian handed over a black card without looking at the total. In the car afterward, Marcus drove them through the city, and Lena watched the lights blur past. She felt full, not just from dinner, but from conversation, from being seen. Thank you, she said quietly. For tonight. It was nice. Nice. Adrian's mouth quirked. Damning with faint praise. I didn't mean... Lena. He shifted closer, and suddenly the space between them felt charged. I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Can you do that? Her heart rate kicked up. Okay. Do you want to see me again? The question was simple. The answer should have been too. But Lena's mind spun with all the reasons this was a terrible idea. He was dangerous, powerful, from a world she didn't understand. Getting involved with him would complicate her simple, quiet life in ways she couldn't predict. But when she looked at him, really looked, all she saw was the man who'd caught her when she fell, who'd asked about her books, who'd listened like her words mattered. Yes, she whispered. I do. Even knowing what I am? I don't know what you are. Not really. Just what the internet says, and the internet says a lot of things that might not be true. Some of it is true. Which parts? Adrian's jaw tightened. The parts about my family, the business we built, the connections we maintain. Are you asking if I'm afraid? I'm asking if you should be. Lena thought about Chef Bernard's warning. Respect the teeth. But fear and respect weren't the same thing, were they? I'm always afraid, she admitted, of everything. New places, new people, phone calls, crowds. This is just one more scary thing on a very long list. That's not an answer. I know. She met his eyes. But it's the only one I have right now. Adrian studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Fair enough. The car stopped outside her building. Marcus got out, but Adrian touched her arm gently before she could follow. Lena, she turned back. I'm going to pursue this. You, us, whatever this becomes. His voice was low, serious. But I need you to understand something. My life is complicated. There are parts of it that aren't safe, aren't clean. If we do this, if you let me into your life, things will change. Change how? I don't know yet, but they will. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, the gesture so gentle it made her breath catch. So I'm giving you a choice right now. We can end this here. I'll make sure no one bothers you. You can go back to your books and your quiet life, and I'll just be a strange story you tell someday. Or you trust me. Let me show you what this could be. His thumb traced her cheekbone, barely a touch. But once you're in, Lena, I won't want to let you go. That's not a threat. It's a warning. Her therapist would tell her to run. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was too much, too fast, too dangerous. But Lena had spent her whole life being rational, being careful, being invisible. And look where it had gotten her, alone, anxious, half-living. I choose or, she whispered. Something fierce and possessive flashed in Adrian's eyes. You're sure? No, but I'm choosing anyway. He kissed her then. Not the careful, gentle kiss she'd expected, but something deeper, claiming. His hand cupped the back of her neck, holding her close as his mouth moved against hers with devastating certainty. Lena made a small sound, surprise or surrender, she couldn't tell, and Adrian swallowed it, his other hand coming up to frame her face. When he finally pulled back, Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at him with wide eyes and swollen lips. Go inside, Adrian said, his voice rough, before I change my mind about being a gentleman. Lena stumbled out of the car on shaking legs. Marcus waited by the door, professional as always, giving nothing away. She made it into the building, up the stairs, into her apartment before her knees gave out. She'd just agreed to date a man who'd essentially admitted to being everything the rumors said he was. She'd just been kissed like she was something precious and dangerous all at once. She'd just chosen chaos over safety. And the terrifying part? She didn't regret it. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Sleep well, Lena. Tomorrow, I'll show you my world. She should have been afraid. Should have second-guessed everything. Instead, she saved his number and fell asleep thinking about the way he'd said her name. Like it meant something. Like she meant something. For the first time in years, Lena Voss felt genuinely, dangerously alive. Adrian's world turned out to be a penthouse that occupied the entire top floor of a building Lena had walked past 100 times without ever imagining what existed beyond the marble lobby. Marcus drove them there the next evening, after Lena had spent the day oscillating between excitement and terror, changing her outfit 4 times before settling on the same jeans and sweater because nothing else felt right. The elevator required a key card. It opened directly into Adrian's apartment. Oh, Lena breathed, stepping into a space that was all floor-to-ceiling windows and clean lines. The city sprawled below them, lights glittering like scattered diamonds. This is too much? Adrian appeared beside her, his hand finding the small of her back. I was going to say beautiful. She moved toward the windows, drawn by the view. You can see everything from up here. That's the point. He stood close enough that she could feel his warmth. I like knowing what's happening in my city. Your city, Lena repeated softly. That's how you think of it? That's how it is. No arrogance in his tone, just fact. My family built half these buildings. We own stake in most of the businesses. We employ thousands of people. The city runs on DeLuca money, whether people admit it or not. Lena turned to face him. Does that ever feel like too much weight? Adrian's expression shifted, something unguarded flickering across his features. Every single day. The honesty in those 3 words made her chest ache. She reached out without thinking, her fingers brushing his jaw. Adrian went still, his gray eyes intense on hers. You don't have to perform for me either, Lena said quietly. I know you told me that, but it goes both ways. You don't have to be the Empire right now. You can just be Adrian. I'm not sure I know who that is anymore. Then we'll figure it out together. He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm that sent heat racing up her arm. You're dangerous, Lena Voss. Me? I can barely order coffee without rehearsing. That's what makes you dangerous. You don't know your own power. His thumb traced circles on her wrist. Come on, I want to show you something. He led her through the apartment, past a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine, a living room with furniture that probably cost more than her car, down a hallway lined with black and white photographs. Lena paused at one, a candid shot of a man who looked like an older version of Adrian. Your father? She asked. Yes. Adrian's voice was neutral, but something tightened around his eyes. You look like him. Everyone says that. I'm not sure it's a compliment. Lena studied the photograph. The elder DeLuca had the same sharp features, the same intense gaze, but there was a hardness there that Adrian didn't quite have. Not yet, anyway. Were you close? She ventured. He died 5 years ago. Adrian moved past the photograph, ending that particular conversation. This way. The room he brought her to was nothing like the rest of the apartment. Where everything else was modern and minimalist, this space was warm, lived in. Bookshelves lined every wall, floor to ceiling, crammed with volumes that ranged from leather-bound classics to dog-eared paperbacks. A worn leather chair sat in the corner, a reading lamp beside it. Lena's mouth fell open. You have a library! I told you I read. Adrian leaned against the doorframe, watching her reaction. Not as much as I'd like, but yes. She moved into the room like it was sacred space, running her fingers along the spines. History, like he'd said. Biographies of everyone from Alexander the Great to modern business moguls. But also fiction, more than she'd expected. Mystery novels. Literary fiction. Even some fantasy. You have Tolkien, she said, pulling out a battered copy of The Fellowship of the Ring. Read it when I was 12. 3 times. Lena turned to stare at him. Really? Why do you sound so surprised? Because you're this intimidating crime lord and you read about hobbits. Adrian's mouth quirked. Even crime lords were kids once. She put the book back carefully, moving to another shelf. Can I ask you something? You keep asking permission. Just ask, Lena. The things people say about your family, about the business, how much of it is true? The question hung between them. Adrian was quiet for so long that Lena thought he might not answer. Then he pushed off the doorframe and moved to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Most of it, he said finally. The DeLuca family has interests in construction, real estate, waste management, and entertainment. Some of those interests are completely legitimate. Others exist in gray areas, and some— He paused. Some would be illegal if anyone could prove them. Like what? Like I'm not going to tell you details that could put you at risk. His voice was firm. But I won't lie to you either. My father built an empire on knowing the right people and making the right deals, and not all of those deals happened in boardrooms. You mean he was part of organized crime? I mean he understood that power isn't just about money, it's about loyalty, fear, knowing what people want and what they're willing to do to get it. Adrian turned to face her fully. He taught me everything about how this world really works, the parts they don't put in business school textbooks. Lena's heart was racing, but not entirely from fear. There was something almost relieving about his honesty, the way he didn't try to sugarcoat or justify. Are you trying to scare me away? She asked. I'm trying to give you the truth. What you do with it is your choice. She thought about that, really thought about it. The smart thing would be to walk away, thank him for dinner, for the honesty, and go back to her safe, small life. But when she looked at Adrian, at the tension in his shoulders, the guarded hope in his eyes, all she could think about was how lonely it must be to live in a world where everyone wanted something from you and no one wanted to know you. I choose to stay, she said, but I have conditions. Something like surprise crossed his face. Conditions. You said your father taught you about power, what people want, what they'll do to get it. Lena forced herself to hold his gaze. I want you to teach me too. Why? Because I've spent my whole life being powerless, being invisible. And maybe that's safe, but it's also— She struggled for the right word. Empty. I want to understand how your world works, not so I can use it, but so I'm not completely lost in it. Adrian studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, but we start small. He moved to the bookshelf, pulling out a slim volume. Read this first. It's about negotiation. How to recognize what people really want versus what they say they want. Lena took the book. The Art of Reading People, the cover read. This is your idea of small? You want to understand power. First lesson. Power is information. Knowing what others don't. Seeing what they try to hide. His fingers brushed hers as he handed over the book. You're already better at it than you think. How do you figure that? You read me pretty well that first night. Saw past the suit and the reputation enough to get in my car. That takes instinct. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. He smiled, and it transformed his face. Made him look younger, less burdened. Come on, I ordered dinner. They ate at his dining table, takeout from a Thai place that Adrian claimed made the best curry in the city. He was right. They sat across from each other, and Lena found herself relaxing despite the surreal nature of the situation. Here she was, eating pad thai with a man who'd just casually admitted to running criminal enterprises, and somehow it felt normal, comfortable even. Tell me about your family, Adrian said, watching her wrestle with chopsticks. Not much to tell. Mom died when I was 16, cancer. Dad left before that. I was 7 when he decided being a husband and father wasn't for him. She managed to capture a piece of chicken. It's just me now. I have an aunt in Colorado, but we're not close. That's why you're so self-sufficient. That's a nice way of saying I don't trust people to stick around. Is it wrong? Lena considered that. No, but it's lonely. Yeah, Adrian's voice was soft. It is. They finished eating, and Adrian led her to the living room. The leather couch was massive and surprisingly comfortable. He sat close enough that their thighs touched, and Lena felt hyper-aware of every point of contact. Can I ask you something now? Adrian said. Fair's fair. That night at the restaurant, when you fell, what were you thinking? Lena laughed, the sound surprised out of her. That I was going to die of embarrassment before I hit the floor, that I'd finally found a job I liked and I was about to lose it, that the universe really hated me. And when I caught you? The question was quieter, more intimate. Lena met his eyes, finding genuine curiosity there. I thought you were going to be angry, she admitted. Everyone's always angry when I mess up, but you weren't. You were... She struggled to find the word. Careful. Like I was something fragile. You are fragile, Lena. That's not an insult. It's just true. I'm tougher than I look. I know. That's what makes you interesting. His hand found hers, fingers threading through hers with easy confidence. Fragile doesn't mean weak. It means you've been broken before and you're still here, still trying. Something in Lena's chest cracked open. How do you do that? Do what? See things about me that I don't even see about myself. I pay attention. He lifted her hand, studying it like it held answers. You have small scars on your knuckles. From cooking, I'm guessing. You bite your thumbnail when you're nervous. You apologize before you ask for things you have every right to have. You're left-handed, but you try to use your right hand for most things because someone probably told you it was wrong. Should I keep going? Lena's throat tightened. You noticed all that? I notice everything about you. His gray eyes locked on hers. It's becoming a problem. Why is it a problem? Because I can't stop thinking about you. Can't focus on business. Can't sleep without wondering what you're doing. If you're safe. If you're thinking about me too. His thumb traced her wrist. Thomas thinks I'm losing my mind. Thomas is the older man from that first night? My second in command. Known him my whole life. He's convinced you're either a distraction I can't afford or a trap being set by my enemies. Fear spiked through her. Enemies? Relax. You're not a trap. You're too genuine for that. Adrian's expression darkened. But the enemies part is real. I have people who'd love nothing more than to see me fall. And anyone close to me becomes a target. Is that why you're telling me all this, to scare me away? I'm telling you because you deserve to know what you're walking into. He shifted closer, his free hand coming up to cup her face. I meant what I said in the car. If we do this, if you let me into your life, everything changes. I can protect you, but only if you trust me. Only if you listen when I tell you something's dangerous. Lena's heart hammered. You're really not doing a great job of making this appealing. I'm not trying to sell you on it. I'm trying to give you the choice with full information. His thumb brushed her cheek. You can walk away right now. I'll make sure you're safe, that no one bothers you, or you can stay, and I'll show you what it means to be mine. The possessiveness in that last word should have bothered her. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in her stomach. What does it mean? She whispered. To be yours? It means I keep you safe. It means no one touches you without going through me first. It means when you're scared, you call me. When you need something, you ask me. His voice dropped lower, rougher. It means I get to kiss you whenever I want, touch you, learn every single thing that makes you smile. That sounds intense. It is. I don't do things halfway, Lena. If you're mine completely. She should have been terrified, should have run screaming from the possessive edge in his voice, the barely controlled hunger in his eyes. But all Lena could think about was how no one had ever wanted her like this, how no one had ever looked at her like she was something worth claiming. I've never been anyone's before, she said quietly. Adrian's expression shifted, something fierce and protective flashing across his features. Never? She shook her head. I told you, I'm not exactly experienced in any of this. Define this. Dating, relationships. I've never, Heat flooded her cheeks. I've only been kissed twice. Once in high school by a boy who lost a bet, and once by you. Adrian's eyes darkened. You're telling me no one has ever... No. The word came out small, embarrassed. He was quiet for so long that Lena wanted to disappear into the couch cushions. This was it. The moment he realized she was too inexperienced, too naive, too much of a project. But then his hand slid to the back of her neck, pulling her closer. Good, he said, his voice rough. Then I'll be your first everything, your only. He kissed her before she could respond, slower than in the car but no less consuming. His mouth moved against hers with devastating patience, teaching her the rhythm. When his tongue traced her bottom lip, Lena gasped, and Adrian took advantage, deepening the kiss until she couldn't think, couldn't breathe, could only feel. His hand tightened in her hair, tilting her head to the angle he wanted. The control should have frightened her. Instead, it made her melt against him, trusting him to hold her up. When he finally pulled back, Lena was trembling. Adrian's breathing was rough, his eyes nearly black. You have no idea what you do to me, he murmured against her lips. I don't know what I'm doing at all, she admitted. I know. That's what makes it perfect. He pressed a softer kiss to her forehead. You're not performing, you're just feeling. Lena's hands had somehow ended up fisted in his shirt. She forced herself to let go, smoothing the wrinkled fabric. Sorry. Stop apologizing for wanting me. I don't... The protest died when she met his eyes. Okay. I do. Want you. Is that allowed? It's required. His mouth quirked. I want you to want me, Lena. I want you to need me. I want to be the person you think about when you can't sleep. You already are. The admission slipped out before she could stop it. Adrian's eyes flared with something possessive and pleased. Yeah? His hand slid down her spine, settling at the small of her back. What do you think about? This, you. Whether this is real or if I'm going to wake up and find out I imagined it. She bit her lip. Whether you'll get bored once you realize I'm exactly as boring as I seem. Lena. He waited until she met his eyes. I've had interesting. I've had exciting. I've had women who knew exactly how to play the game, who understood power and used it. His thumb traced her jaw. You know what I never had? Real. Someone who blushes when I compliment her. Someone who doesn't want anything from me except my time. That can't be enough. It's everything. He kissed her again, gentler this time. Stay tonight. Lena's breath caught. Stay? Not like that. Not yet. Adrian's expression was serious. I want you in my bed, but only so I can hold you. Learn how you sleep. Wake up with you. His hand cupped her face. I'm trying to take this slow, but I also don't want you to leave. Can you understand that? She should say no. Should go home to her own bed, her own space, maintain some kind of boundary. But the truth was, she didn't want to leave either. didn't want to go back to her empty apartment and her anxious thoughts. "I don't have anything to sleep in," she said instead of no. Adrian's smile was slow and warm. "You can wear one of my shirts." 20 minutes later, Lena stood in Adrian's bathroom, a space bigger than her entire apartment, wearing one of his dress shirts. The fabric was soft, expensive, and fell to mid-thigh. She'd washed her face with his soap, brushed her teeth with a spare toothbrush he'd produced from somewhere, and now she stared at her reflection, wondering what the hell she was doing. "You're staying over at a crime lord's penthouse," she told her reflection. "In his shirt. This is your life now, apparently." When she emerged, Adrian was already in bed, bare-chested and scrolling through his phone. He looked up when she appeared, and something in his expression made her feel beautiful instead of awkward. "Come here," he said, setting the phone aside. Lena crossed to the bed, a massive thing with sheets that probably cost more than her rent, and climbed in beside him. Adrian immediately pulled her close, arranging her against his chest like she belonged there. "Comfortable?" he asked. "Your bed is ridiculous." "I'll take that as a yes." His hand stroked her hair, the gesture soothing. "Sleep, Lena. It's barely 10. Then rest. When's the last time you just rested?" She couldn't remember. There was always something to do, some anxiety to manage, some task that needed completing. But here, in Adrian's arms, with his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, Lena felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Safe. She must have drifted off, because the next thing she knew, Adrian was shaking her gently. "Lena, wake up." She blinked awake, disoriented. The room was dark except for the city lights filtering through the windows. Adrian sat beside her, fully dressed now, his expression tense. "What's wrong?" she asked, fear spiking. "I have to handle something. Thomas is outside. He's going to take you home." "What time is it?" 2 a.m. "I'm sorry. I wouldn't wake you, but I can't leave you here alone." His hand cupped her face. "Business emergency. Nothing for you to worry about." But she could see the tension in his shoulders, the hard set of his jaw. This wasn't just business. This was something dangerous. "Are you going to be okay?" she asked. Adrian's expression softened slightly. "I'll be fine. This is what I do." Lena sat up, Adrian's shirt bunching around her thighs. "Call me when you're done, so I know you're safe?" Something shifted in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or tenderness. "You're worried about me." "Of course I am." He kissed her then, hard and fast. "I'll call. Get dressed. Thomas is waiting." 10 minutes later, Lena was in the back of the car, still wearing Adrian's shirt under her sweater because she couldn't bring herself to take it off. Thomas drove in silence, his expression grim. "Is he really going to be okay?" Lena asked quietly. Thomas glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. Adrian's been handling situations like this since he was 20. He knows what he's doing. That's not an answer. "It's the only one I can give you." He paused, then added, "But for what it's worth, he's more careful now, since you." "I've known him less than a week." "Doesn't matter. You matter to him. That makes him vulnerable, but it also makes him sharper, more cautious." Thomas's eyes met hers in the mirror. "Take care of him, Miss Voss. He needs someone who doesn't want to use him." "I don't know how to take care of someone like Adrian." "You're already doing it, just by caring." He pulled up outside her building. "He'll call when it's safe." Lena let herself into her apartment, exhausted and wired at the same time. She checked her phone obsessively for the next 2 hours, alternating between pacing and sitting, wearing Adrian's shirt like armor. At 4:30 a.m., her phone rang. "Adrian?" "It's done." His voice was rough, tired. "Everything's fine." Relief flooded through her. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. Go back to sleep, Lena." "I can't. I'm too worried." A pause, then softer. "Want me to stay on the phone until you fall asleep?" "You don't have to." "I want to." She could hear him settling into a chair, the creak of leather. "Talk to me. Tell me about your favorite book." So she did. Curled up in her own bed, wearing his shirt, Lena told Adrian about the night circus, about magic and wonder and love that transcended normal rules. She talked until her voice grew drowsy, until words started to slur. "Sleep now," Adrian murmured. "I've got you." And somehow, impossibly, she believed him. When Lena woke the next morning, her phone showed the call had lasted 3 hours. There was a text waiting. Breakfast is being delivered to your apartment at 9. Eat. I'll pick you up at noon. We're going somewhere. She should have been annoyed at the high-handed command. Instead, she smiled. At exactly 9 a.m., someone knocked on her door. Lena opened it to find a delivery person holding bags from a cafe she'd never been able to afford. Coffee, croissants, fresh fruit. The note inside read, "You need to eat better." Alana took a picture of the spread and sent it to him with the caption, "Bossy." His response came immediately. "You have no idea. See you at noon." She ate breakfast feeling lighter than she had in months, wearing Adrian's shirt and wondering how her careful, quiet life had become something out of a story she'd read. But unlike the books, she had no idea how this one would end. And for once, that didn't terrify her. It excited her. The somewhere turned out to be a construction site on the edge of the city, where skeletal buildings reached toward a gray sky and the smell of concrete dust hung thick in the air. Lena stood beside Adrian's car, eyeing the muddy ground with doubt. "This is your idea of a date?" she asked. Adrian came around the car, hard hat in hand. "I want to show you something. Trust me?" She took the hard hat he offered. "That seems to be a recurring theme with you." "Is it working?" Lana settled the hat on her head, probably looking ridiculous. "Unfortunately, yes." His smile was quick and genuine. "Come on." He led her through the site, pointing out details she never would have noticed. The way the foundation was reinforced, the strategic placement of support beams, the bones of what would eventually become affordable housing units. "This is mine," Adrian said, stopping at the center of the construction zone. "Not DeLuca Enterprises. Mine. I bought this land 6 months ago. Paid cash, so there's no paper trail leading back to the family business." Lena turned in a slow circle, trying to understand. "Why?" "Because I'm tired of building monuments to wealth, luxury condos that sit empty because they're investments, not homes." His voice carried an edge she hadn't heard before. "This will be actual housing, rent-controlled, for families who work 3 jobs and still can't afford a decent place to live." "That's..." Lena struggled for words. "That's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Something more... empire building?" Adrian's expression darkened. "I've built enough empire. This is something else, something clean." Lena watched him as he surveyed the construction, seeing past the hard edges to something softer underneath. Something that maybe wanted redemption, even if he'd never used that word. "Your father wouldn't approve," she said quietly. "My father's dead." Adrian's voice was flat. "And no, he wouldn't. He'd say I'm wasting resources on people who can't pay enough to matter. That power comes from controlling what people need, not giving it away." "But you're doing it anyway. I'm doing it because of you." Lena's breath caught. "What?" "You asked me what I'd do if I could do anything. I told you I'd restore old buildings, save pieces of the past." He turned to face her fully. "But that's not entirely true. What I really want is to build something that matters, something that helps instead of hurts." "Adrian, you look at me like I'm capable of being better than I am. Like the empire and the violence and the fear aren't all there is." His gray eyes held hers with devastating intensity. "I want to be the man you see, not the one my father raised." The honesty in those words hit Lena square in the chest. She stepped closer, her boots squelching in the mud. "You are that man," she said. "You're just also the other one. People aren't one thing, Adrian. We're complicated, contradictory." "That's generous." "It's true." She reached up, her hand finding his face. "You scare me sometimes. The intensity, the control, the casual way you talk about power. But you also make me feel safer than I've ever felt. You're teaching me about negotiation while building affordable housing. You're both things." Adrian's hand covered hers, pressing her palm against his cheek. "And you're okay with that? The contradiction?" "I'm a walking contradiction. Anxious but stubborn. Shy but opinionated. Afraid of everything but still choosing you." She smiled slightly. "We're a matched set." He kissed her there, in the middle of the construction site, mud on their shoes and dust in their hair. It was nothing like the controlled passion of his penthouse. This was raw, desperate, like he was trying to pull her inside him and keep her there. When they broke apart, Lena was breathless. "I need to tell you something." Adrian said, his forehead resting against hers. Okay. Last night, the emergency. His jaw tightened. There was a threat against one of my businesses. Someone trying to move in on territory that's been DeLuca controlled for 20 years. What did you do? I handled it. Reminded them why challenging us is a bad idea. He pulled back slightly, watching her reaction. I'm not going to lie and say it was pretty, Lena. I did what needed to be done. She should have been horrified, should have demanded details, insisted he explain exactly what handled it meant. But the truth was, she didn't want to know. Knowing would make it real in a way she wasn't ready for. Did anyone get hurt? She asked instead. Define hurt. Adrian. Broken bones heal, reputations get rebuilt. But yeah, someone got hurt. No apology in his voice, just fact. That's what I am, Lena. When someone threatens what's mine, I don't negotiate. I end the threat. And I'm yours now, so if someone threatened me, then I'd burn their entire world down. He said it calmly, like he was discussing the weather. Without hesitation, without mercy. Lena should have run. Should have gotten in the car and demanded Thomas take her home. Instead, she found herself strangely reassured by the cold certainty in his voice. That's insane, she whispered. Probably. I should be terrified. Are you? She searched herself honestly. Fear was there, but it was tangled up with something else. Something that felt dangerously like trust. No, she admitted. I'm not. Adrian's expression shifted, surprise giving way to something fiercer. You really are going to ruin me. Is that bad? I don't know yet. He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Come on, I want to show you the plans. They spent the next hour in a trailer that served as the site office, Adrian walking her through blueprints and architectural drawings. He explained load-bearing walls and zoning requirements with the same intensity he'd probably used to explain territory disputes to whoever he'd handled the night before. Lena listened, watching the way his hands moved over the plans, the way his voice softened when he talked about green spaces and community areas. This was Adrian without the armor, without the performance, just a man who wanted to build something good. You really care about this, she said. I told you. I'm tired of destroying things. He looked up from the blueprints. I want to create something that lasts, something people will point to in 50 years and say, that's where my grandmother lived. That's where I grew up. Legacy. The right kind, not the kind my father left me. Lena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then winced. 3 missed calls from Marco. 2 texts asking where she was. Her shift at Aurelio's had started an hour ago. I have to go, she said. I'm supposed to be at work. Adrian glanced at his watch. Call in. Tell them you're sick. I can't do that. Why not? Because I've never called in sick. Because I need this job. Because... Lena. He caught her hand. How much do you make in a week at Aurelio's? She told him, and something flickered across his face. That's what I spend on shoes, he said quietly. Let me... No. The word came out sharper than she intended. I know where you're going with this, and no. I'm not quitting my job so you can take care of me. That's not who I am. I'm not trying to control you. Aren't you? You send me breakfast without asking if I want it. You pick me up without checking if I have plans. You want me to call in sick because it's convenient for you. Lena pulled her hand back. I like you, Adrian. A lot. But I'm not going to become some kept woman who waits around for you to have time for her. The words hung between them. Adrian's expression was unreadable. You're right, he said finally. I'm sorry. The apology surprised her. Really? I'm used to people doing what I want. It's a bad habit. He stepped closer, but didn't touch her. But you're not people, Lena. You're you. And I don't want to change that. Then let me keep my job. Let me keep my independence. On one condition. What? Let me send Marcus to pick you up after your shifts. I don't like you taking the bus that late. Lena wanted to argue, but the request was reasonable. And the truth was, the late-night bus rides did scare her sometimes. Fine, she agreed. But that's it. No more surprise breakfasts. No more decisions about my schedule. We talk about things first. Adrian's mouth quirked. You're negotiating with me. You told me to read that book about reading people. I'm applying what I learned, which is that you're trying to take care of me because you care, but you're doing it in a way that makes you feel in control because control is how you manage fear. She tilted her head. Am I close? His expression shifted from surprised to impressed. Disturbingly close. So let's find a middle ground. You can worry about me. You can even take care of me sometimes, but you have to let me take care of myself too. Adrian studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Deal. But Lena? Yeah? When there's actual danger, I'm not negotiating. If I tell you to do something for your safety, you do it. No arguments. How will I know it's actual danger versus you being overprotective? You'll know. His voice carried an edge that made her shiver. Trust me, you'll know. Marcus drove her to Aurelios, and Lena spent the rest of her shift in a daze. She went through the motions, taking orders, serving wine, clearing plates, but her mind was elsewhere. On construction sites and broken bones, on a man who built affordable housing with one hand and threatened his enemies with the other. Chef Bernard cornered her during a lull, his expression grave. You're in deep with him now, oui? Lena didn't bother denying it. Yes. Be careful, petit oiseau. Men like DeLuca, they consume. They don't mean to, but they can't help it. It's in their nature. Maybe I want to be consumed. Bernard's eyes widened. That's not the scared little mouse I hired 6 months ago talking. No, Lena agreed. It's not. Because something was shifting inside her. The woman who'd spent her whole life apologizing for existing was learning to take up space, learning that being seen wasn't the same as being vulnerable, that fear and courage could coexist. Her shift ended at midnight. True to his word, Marcus was waiting outside. Miss Voss, he greeted her with his usual professional courtesy. Marcus, can I ask you something? Of course. How long have you worked for Adrian? Since he was 17. I was his father's driver first. So you've seen him. Grow up. Change. Marcus pulled into traffic, his expression thoughtful. I've seen him survive. There's a difference. What do you mean? Adrian's father was a hard man, brilliant, ruthless, demanding. He raised Adrian to take over the empire, and that kind of training, Marcus paused. It leaves marks. Adrian learned early that showing weakness got you killed, that trust was a liability, that love was something to be controlled, not felt. Lena's chest tightened. That's awful. It made him strong, capable, but it also made him lonely. Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You're the first person I've seen him drop his guard around in years, maybe ever. That's a lot of pressure. It's also a gift, don't waste it. He dropped her at her building, and Lena climbed the stairs feeling the weight of Marcus's words. Inside her apartment, she found another delivery waiting, a box with a note. I know I said no more surprises, but this was ordered before our conversation. Forgive me? Inside was the most beautiful coat Lena had ever seen. Warm, practical, expensive. The kind of thing she'd never buy herself but desperately needed as winter approached. She called him immediately. You're impossible, she said when he answered. You're wearing it. Not a question. How did you know my size? I pay attention, remember? She could hear the smile in his voice. And before you argue, this was about need, not control. Your coat has a broken zipper, and you're too stubborn to replace it. Lena looked down at her old coat, tossed over a chair. The zipper had been broken for weeks. Thank you, she said quietly. It's beautiful. You're welcome. Now get some sleep. I'm picking you up tomorrow at 10. For what? A surprise. And before you protest, this is the good kind. The kind you'll actually enjoy. How do you know what I'll enjoy? Lena. His voice dropped to that intimate register that made her shiver. I'm making it my mission to know everything that makes you smile. Trust me on this. She did. That was the terrifying part. The next morning, Adrian picked her up in a different car. Something sleek and fast that probably violated several traffic laws, just sitting still. He drove them out of the city, into countryside that Lena had never explored. Where are we going? She asked as buildings gave way to trees. You'll see. An hour later, they pulled up to a massive estate. The main house was beautiful in a faded way, the kind of place that had seen better days but still held echoes of grandeur. "What is this?" Lena asked as they got out. "A project. I bought it 6 months ago. The previous owner died without heirs, and it was going to be demolished." Adrian took her hand, leading her toward the house. But it was built in 1887, original woodwork, hand-carved banisters, history in every board. "You're restoring it." "I'm going to, or at least I'm going to try." He opened the front door, and Lena gasped. The interior was a disaster: water-damaged walls, rotting floors, broken windows. But underneath the decay, she could see the beauty: high ceilings with ornate molding, a grand staircase that swept upward, stained glass that caught the morning light. "It's incredible," she breathed. "It's a mess, but it could be something." Adrian watched her carefully. "I want your help." "My help?" "Adrian, I don't know anything about restoration. You know about preserving things, making sure they're not forgotten." He gestured to the library, a room with built-in shelves reaching to the ceiling, empty now but full of potential. This could be a real library someday, open to the public, a place where people can come and just exist. No judgment, no fear. Lena's throat tightened. "You're serious?" "Completely. I'll handle the restoration, the structural work, but I need someone who understands what makes a library feel safe, what makes people want to stay." His hand found hers. "I need you." She looked around the ruined library, seeing not what it was, but what it could be. Comfortable chairs, good lighting, shelves organized with care, a place where shy, anxious people could hide from the world without being alone. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "Yes, you can. You just have to trust yourself the way I trust you." Something in Lena's chest cracked open. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was offering her a dream she hadn't even known she had. A chance to create something beautiful, something that mattered. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll help." Adrian's smile was brilliant. "Yeah?" "Yeah, but I have conditions." "Of course you do." He looked amused. "Let's hear them." "I want input on every decision, not just the library, but the whole restoration. I want to learn the process, understand why we're making each choice." "Done." "And I want this to be accessible, not just physically, but financially. If we're building a library, it should be free, open to everyone." "Also done." "What else?" Lena bit her lip. "I want credit, my name on the project, not hiding in the background." Adrian's expression shifted, something fierce and proud flickering across his features. "Lena Voss and Adrian DeLuca, partners." "Partners?" she agreed. He pulled her close, kissing her with a thoroughness that left her dizzy. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "I want to show you something else," he said, his voice rough. He led her upstairs, carefully avoiding the worst of the damage, to a room at the back of the house. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked what had once been gardens, now overgrown but still beautiful in their wildness. "I'm going to restore this room first," Adrian said. "Make it livable while the rest of the work happens." "Why this room?" "Because it has the best light, the best view." He turned to face her. "And because I want somewhere I can bring you, somewhere that's just ours, away from the city and the empire and everything else." Lena's heart hammered. "Adrian, I know it's fast. I know we've barely known each other 2 weeks. But I can't remember the last time I wanted something this badly." His hands framed her face. "I want mornings here with you. Want to wake up and see you in this light. Want to build something with you that's separate from everything else." "You're talking about a future." "I'm talking about our future. No hesitation, no doubt. If you want it." Lena thought about her careful, quiet life, her studio apartment and her anxiety and her small, safe dreams. Then she thought about construction sites and restoration projects, about a man who saw her and didn't look away, about becoming someone who took up space instead of apologizing for it. "I want it," she said. "I'm terrified, but I want it." Adrian's kiss was different this time, slower, deeper, a promise instead of a question. They spent the rest of the day exploring the estate, making plans. Adrian explained the restoration timeline, the permits needed, the contractors he'd already vetted. Lena took notes on her phone, already thinking about library organization systems and reading nooks. On the drive back to the city, Lena felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not the careful, guarded kind, but real hope. The kind that believed in futures and possibilities and dreams that might actually come true. "Thank you," she said quietly. Adrian glanced at her. "For what?" "For seeing me. For making me believe I'm worth seeing." His hand found hers, squeezed. "You've always been worth seeing, Lena. You just needed someone to prove it." That night, back in Adrian's penthouse, they lay in his massive bed talking until dawn. About the estate. About their pasts. About the future they were building together. And when Lena finally fell asleep, wrapped in Adrian's arms, she didn't dream of being invisible. She dreamed of libraries and light, and a man who'd chosen her out of everyone he could have had. She dreamed of being enough. But outside Adrian's windows, the city sprawled in darkness. And in that darkness, enemies were gathering. People who saw Adrian's distraction as weakness, who saw Lena as a vulnerability to exploit. The peace they'd found was fragile, and it wouldn't last. The threat came 3 weeks later, delivered in the most mundane way possible. Lena was leaving Aurelios after her shift, already looking forward to seeing Adrian, when a man stepped out of the shadows near the employee entrance. He was ordinary-looking, middle-aged, average height, forgettable face, the kind of person you'd pass on the street without a second glance. "Lena Voss?" he asked. Every instinct screamed at her to run. "Who's asking?" "Someone who thinks you should know what you're really getting into." He held out a manila envelope. "Your boyfriend isn't who you think he is. I know exactly who he is." "Do you?" The man's smile was cold. "Do you know about the warehouse fire in 2019? The 3 men who died? Or the construction company that went bankrupt after refusing to sell to DeLuca Enterprises? The owner who killed himself when he lost everything?" Lena's stomach churned, but she kept her voice steady. "I don't know who you are, but I'm not interested in whatever you're selling." "I'm not selling anything. I'm offering truth." He dropped the envelope at her feet. "Read it, then ask yourself if this is really the life you want." He walked away before she could respond, disappearing into the night like he'd never been there at all. Lena stared at the envelope, her hands shaking. She should leave it, should call Adrian, tell him what happened, let him handle it. Instead, she picked it up. Marcus pulled up moments later, his expression concerned when he saw her face. "Miss Voss? Are you all right?" "Fine," she lied, clutching the envelope. "Just tired." She waited until she was home, door locked, before opening it. Inside were newspaper clippings, police reports, photographs. Everything the man had mentioned and more. Evidence of Adrian's father's brutality. Questions about Adrian's own involvement in various incidents. Financial records showing money moving through shell companies. And photos. Adrian at what looked like a crime scene, his expression cold and detached. Adrian shaking hands with men whose faces were circled in red, with notes identifying them as known criminals. Adrian walking out of a police station at 3 a.m., his lawyer beside him. Lena's phone rang. "Adrian." She let it go to voicemail. It rang again and again. Finally, she answered. "Where are you?" Adrian's voice was tight with tension. "Marcus said he dropped you off an hour ago, but you haven't texted. What's wrong?" "I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." A pause. "What happened?" "A man stopped me outside work, gave me an envelope full of articles and photos. About your father, about you." Her voice shook. "About people who died, Adrian, who lost everything." "Where are you right now?" "Home." "Stay there. I'm coming over." "No, I need space to think." "Lena, please." The word came out broken. "Just give me tonight. I'll call you tomorrow." She hung up before he could argue, then turned off her phone. The night stretched endless and dark. Lena read every article, studied every photo, tried to reconcile the man who held her gently with the man in these images. Cold, dangerous, ruthless. By morning, she'd made a decision. She turned her phone back on to find 37 missed calls from Adrian, twice that many texts. The last one, sent at 4 a.m., simply read, "Please just tell me you're safe." She texted back, "I'm safe. Meet me at the estate at noon. We need to talk." His response was immediate. "I'll be there." Lena took the bus out of the city, then walked the last mile to the estate. The morning was cold, frost still clinging to the overgrown gardens. She let herself in with the key Adrian had given her, climbing to their room, the one he'd promised to restore first. He was already there, standing at the window. He looked like he hadn't slept, his hair disheveled, his jaw dark with stubble. When he turned and saw her, the relief in his expression was almost painful. "Lena, don't!" She held up a hand, keeping distance between them. "I need you to answer some questions. Really answer them. Not the sanitized version. Not the version you think I can handle. The truth." Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "All right. The warehouse fire. 2019. 3 men died. Were you involved?" "Yes." No hesitation. No attempt to soften it. "They were stealing from us. Skimming product and selling it to our competitors. My father wanted them dead. I argued for a different solution, cutting them out, blacklisting them. He overruled me. I didn't set the fire, but I knew it was going to happen. I could have stopped it, and I didn't. The honesty was worse than a lie would have been." Lena's hand shook. "The construction company owner, the one who killed himself." "Gerald Morrison. He owned a small operation. Good man. Honest." Adrian's voice was flat. "My father wanted his contracts. Made him an offer. Morrison refused, so my father destroyed him, undercut his bids, bribed inspectors to find violations that didn't exist, spread rumors about shoddy work. Within 6 months, Morrison had lost everything. He put a gun in his mouth rather than watch his life's work crumble." "And you?" "I was 22, still learning the business, still believing my father knew best." Adrian's eyes were dark with old pain. "I could have stopped it. Should have. But I was too much of a coward. Stop calling yourself a coward. You were young. That's not an excuse. I knew what was happening. I watched it happen." He took a step toward her. "You want to know who I am, Lena? Really know? I'm someone who's done terrible things, who's stood by while terrible things happened, who's hurt people to protect what's mine." "Are you still doing those things?" "Some of them. The world I operate in doesn't allow for clean hands." He met her eyes. "But I'm trying to be better. The housing project, the estate, you. You make me want to be better." "That's not fair. You can't put that on me." "I'm not. The choice to change is mine. But you're the reason I'm making it." He moved closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his face. "I can't erase my past, Lena. Can't bring back the people my father hurt, the lives he destroyed. All I can do is try to build something different going forward." Lena looked at him, really looked, and saw the truth of it, the weight he carried, the guilt that had probably been there all along, just hidden beneath control and confidence. "The man who gave me the envelope," she said. "Who was he?" "Probably working for the Castellanos. They've been trying to move in on my territory for months. Seeing you as my weakness is a logical play." "So this will happen again, people trying to use me against you." "Yes. No point in lying, unless I end it." "How do you end something like this?" Adrian's expression went cold, hard. "By making it clear that touching you means war. By being brutal enough that no one's willing to take the risk." Lena's stomach turned. "You're talking about hurting people. I'm talking about protecting you. There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the same violence that killed those men in the warehouse. That destroyed Gerald Morrison." "You're right." The admission seemed to cost him. "It is the same. That's what I am, Lena. That's what my world requires. I can build housing projects and restore estates and try to do some good, but at the end of the day, I'm still the man who'll break bones to protect what's his. And I'm his now." "Yes." No apology. "You chose this, chose me, knowing what I was." "I didn't know everything." "You knew enough." His voice gentled. "You're not stupid, Lena. You knew I was dangerous. You knew people got hurt. You just didn't want the details." He was right. She had known, had chosen not to ask too many questions, to accept the sanitized version because it was easier. But easy wasn't the same as honest. "I can't be with someone who hurts people," she said quietly. "Then you can't be with me." Adrian's face was carefully blank. Because I won't lie to you, won't pretend I'm something I'm not. The violence is part of the package. There has to be another way. There isn't. Not in my world. Lena turned away, staring out at the overgrown gardens. Then maybe I can't be in your world. The silence that followed was crushing. Is that what you want? Adrian's voice was rough. To walk away? I don't know what I want. Lena wrapped her arms around herself. I want you. I want this. The estate, the library, the future we talked about. But I don't want blood on my hands. Don't want to be the reason people get hurt. You wouldn't be the reason. They'd be? That's semantics. It's truth. Adrian moved to stand beside her, not touching but close. The Castellanos are coming for me, whether you exist or not. They see opportunity in my distraction, weakness in my attachment to you. But that's on them, not you. So what do? I handle them, permanently. And you decide if you can live with what that means. Lena closed her eyes. How would you handle them? Do you really want to know? Yes. No more sanitized versions. If I'm going to make a real choice, I need real information. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was devoid of emotion. I'd go to their leadership. Make it clear that you're off limits. That any move against you, any threat, any attempt to use you, will be met with total war. I'd take out their revenue streams, turn their allies against them. Make the cost of touching you so high that even thinking about it becomes stupid. Would anyone die? Probably not. I'm trying to move away from that. But people would lose businesses, money, power. I'd destroy what they've built the same way my father destroyed Gerald Morrison. Becoming what you hate. Using the tools I have. I can't change the world I operate in, Lena. I can only decide how I use my power within it. She turned to face him. And what about after? After you handle the Castellanos, there'll be someone else. Another threat. Another reason to break bones and destroy lives. Yes. So it never ends. Not until I'm out. And I can't get out until I've secured enough legitimate business to walk away clean. His hand found her face, thumb brushing her cheek. That's years away. Maybe decades. Can you wait that long? Can you stand beside me while I do what needs to be done? It was the central question, the one everything else hinged on. Lena thought about her quiet life before Adrian, safe, lonely, small. Then she thought about the past month, the fear and the excitement, the way he looked at her like she mattered, the dreams he'd given her, the library, the restoration, a future that was bigger than survival. I need conditions, she said finally. Something like hope flickered in Adrian's eyes. Name them. No unnecessary violence. If you can solve something without hurting people, you do. I don't care if it's harder or takes longer. Done. And you include me in decisions, not the details. I don't need to know how you're handling things, but the why. I need to understand your reasoning. Agreed. What else? The legitimate businesses, the housing project, the estate, whatever else you're building that's clean, those become priority. Not someday. Now, you start transitioning away from the gray areas. Adrian's jaw tightened. That's not simple, Lena. I have obligations, people depending on me. Then figure it out, because I can't build a future with you if there isn't going to be a clean future to build. She met his eyes. I'm asking you to choose. The empire or me. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. You taught me that. She stepped closer. You told me you wanted to be better because of me. Prove it. Show me that I matter more than power. The silence stretched between them, taut as wire. Lena held her breath, waiting. Finally, Adrian spoke. 5 years? What? Give me 5 years. I'll transition everything legitimate, shut down the gray areas, cut ties with anyone who can't operate clean. His voice was intense. But I need time to do it right. To make sure the people who depend on me land safely. To build enough legitimate revenue that we're not vulnerable. 5 years is a long time. It's also realistic. I can't just walk away overnight without leaving chaos behind. People would get hurt. My people. Families who depend on DeLuca money for their livelihoods. His hand cupped her face. But I'll do it. I'll build us a clean future, if you'll wait for me. Lena searched his face, looking for lies, for the performance. But all she saw was raw honesty. A man who'd probably never made a promise like this to anyone. Okay, she whispered. 5 years. Adrian kissed her then, desperate and relieved. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. I need to handle the Castellanos, he said, today, before they make another move. Will you tell me what you're going to do? I'm going to sit down with their boss, explain the situation, make it clear that you're protected. He paused. And I'm going to offer them something they want more than territory. What? A legitimate business partnership. They've been trying to go legit for years, but they don't have the connections. I do. I'll help them transition if they leave you alone and stop pushing into my operations. That's not what I expected. I told you. I'm trying to be better. His smile was slight. Doesn't mean I won't break legs if they refuse, but I'll try your way first. When do you meet with them? 2 hours? Thomas is setting it up now. Adrian pulled her close. I want you to stay here. Marcus will be outside. You'll be safe. I want to come with you. Absolutely not. Adrian? This is non-negotiable, Lena. You don't go near this. His voice was firm. You asked me to include you in decisions. This is my decision. You stay safe while I handle it. She wanted to argue, but the fear in his eyes, carefully hidden but there, stopped her. Fine, but you call me as soon as it's done. I will. He kissed her forehead. I love you. The words hit like a physical blow. Lena stared at him, shocked. You, what? I love you. He said it simply, like it was obvious. I know it's fast. I know it's probably too much, but it's true. I love you, Lena Voss. You're the only good thing in my life, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep you. Tears burned her eyes. You can't just say that right before you go into a dangerous meeting. Why not? Because what if something happens? What if nothing's going to happen? But if it did, I'd want you to know. He brushed away her tears. Do you love me? She should say no, should protect herself, should hold something back. Yes, she whispered instead. I love you too, even though you're impossible and controlling and you make terrible life choices. His laugh was soft. We make terrible life choices together. It's more fun that way. He left her in their room with a final kiss, and Lena watched from the window as his car disappeared down the long driveway. Marcus remained leaning against his own vehicle, watching the road. The next 3 hours were the longest of Lena's life. She tried to read, to plan library layouts, to think about anything other than what might be happening, but her mind kept conjuring worst-case scenarios. Adrian shot, arrested, hurt. Her phone rang at 4 p.m. It's done, Adrian said. They agreed. No blood, no violence, just business. Relief nearly dropped her to her knees. Really? Really? Turns out they were tired of the fight, ready to go legitimate. I'm giving them a way to do it with their pride intact. He sounded exhausted. I'm coming to get you. We need to celebrate. Celebrate how? I'm taking you somewhere. Somewhere important. An hour later, they stood in front of a small office building downtown. The sign read, DeLuca Foundation. What is this? Lena asked. The start of my transition, a charitable foundation focused on affordable housing, education access, and community development. Adrian took her hand. I filed the paperwork this morning. Thomas thinks I'm insane, but it's done. Adrian, I'm serious about this, about us, about building something clean. He pulled her close. 5 years seems long, but it'll go fast. And at the end, we'll have the life we want, the library, the estate, a future that doesn't require looking over our shoulders. Lena looked up at the building, seeing not what it was, but what it represented. Hope. Change. A man choosing to be better. I'm proud of you, she said quietly. Yeah? Yeah. 6 months later, Lena stood in the library at the estate, now fully restored. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books she'd carefully selected. Comfortable chairs clustered near windows. Reading lamps cast warm pools of light. The grand opening was in 2 days. The local paper was sending a reporter. Community members had already started signing up for library cards. Adrian found her there, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You did it," he murmured against her hair. "We did it." She leaned back against him. "How's the foundation?" "Funded the first affordable housing project. Broke ground last week." His hand slid to her stomach, resting there. "Thomas is still convinced I've lost my mind, but the numbers work. We're actually making a difference." Lena covered his hand with hers, her heart racing. "Adrian, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I'm pregnant." She felt him go still behind her. Then slowly he turned her to face him. His expression was unreadable. "You're sure?" he asked. "I took 3 tests. All positive." She bit her lip. "I know it's not ideal timing. We're still transitioning everything, and the library just opened, and—" Adrian kissed her, cutting off her spiral. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. "It's perfect timing," he said. "We're building a future. Why not build a family too?" "You're not scared?" "Terrified, but in a good way." His hand returned to her stomach, reverent. "We're really doing this? The whole thing? Library, foundation, baby?" "Apparently," Lena laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "I don't know how to be a mother, Adrian. I barely know how to take care of myself." "You'll learn. We both will." He pulled her close. Together. The library opened to a crowd that surprised them both. Families, students, elderly people who remembered the estate in its glory days. They wandered the restored rooms with wonder, touching the books like they were treasures. Lena watched them, her hand unconsciously resting on her still flat stomach, and felt something she'd never expected to feel. Complete. Not perfect. She still got anxious in crowds, still apologized too much, still doubted herself daily. Adrian still made decisions that worried her, still carried the weight of his family's legacy, still had moments where the hard man showed through the gentler one. But they were building something, together, something that mattered. A year later, Lena stood in the library again, this time with a baby on her hip. Emma had Adrian's gray eyes and Lena's shy smile. She was 4 months old and already the center of their universe. "She likes the books," Adrian said, coming up beside them. He'd been in a meeting with Thomas, finalizing the closure of another gray area business. The transition was happening. Slowly, but it was happening. "She likes everything?" Lena shifted Emma to her other hip. "How'd it go?" "We're down to 3 problematic operations. Thomas found buyers for 2 of them. The third," he grimaced, "it's complicated, but we'll figure it out." "You always do." They stood together, watching families browse the stacks, and Lena thought about the terrified waitress she'd been a year and a half ago. The girl who'd tried so hard to be invisible. She wasn't that girl anymore. She was a mother, a library director, a partner to a man who was learning to choose love over power. She was Lena Voss DeLuca, and she was finally wonderfully visible. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked quietly. "Choosing this life? Choosing me?" Lena looked at him, at the man who'd caught her when she fell and never let go, at the father holding their daughter with such careful tenderness, at the person who was trying, every single day, to be better. "Not once," she said, and she meant it. 3 years after that, on the day Adrian signed the papers dissolving the last of his father's questionable businesses, they stood in the garden of the estate. Emma was nearly 5 now, chasing butterflies through the restored flower beds. A son, James, toddled after her on unsteady legs. "It's done," Adrian said, staring at the paperwork. "Everything's legitimate, clean. How does it feel?" "Strange, like I just cut off a limb." He looked at her. "But lighter, like I can finally breathe." Lena took his hand, squeezing. "You did it. 2 years early, even." "We did it. None of this happens without you pushing me." He pulled her close. "You saved me, Lena. From becoming my father. From losing myself completely. You saved yourself. I just reminded you it was possible." They stood there watching their children play, and Lena thought about the journey, the fear and the courage, the terrible choices and the good ones, the way love could transform people if they let it. She'd been so afraid of being seen, of being known, but being seen by Adrian, truly, completely seen, had been the best thing that ever happened to her. because he hadn't just seen her fears and her flaws. He'd seen her strength, her worth, her capacity for so much more than she'd believed possible. And in seeing her, he'd taught her to see herself. "I love you," she said, the words easy now, natural. "I love you too." Adrian kissed her temple. "Thank you for choosing me, for staying when you had every reason to run. Where else would I go? You're my home." And it was true. This estate, this library, this family, they were home in a way her studio apartment had never been. Not because they were beautiful or expensive, but because they were built on something real, on love, on trust, on the choice to show up every day and do the hard work of being better. Emma shrieked with laughter as she caught a butterfly, her joy infectious. James clapped his chubby hands, trying to copy his sister. Lena and Adrian watched them together, and Lena knew with absolute certainty that this was enough, more than enough. The shy girl who'd tried to disappear had become a woman who'd learned to stand in the light, and the dangerous man who'd ruled through fear had learned to lead through love. They were both transformed, both better, together. And that, Lena thought, as Adrian's arm tightened around her waist, was the kind of ending worth choosing, the kind worth fighting for, the kind that felt like coming home.